Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there tonight and have yourselves a great Tuesday, a great start to your work week. If you haven't tuned in this week, hope you guys are having a great week so far. Got you an update tonight on two main topics. One topic being the storm system that will be cranking up tomorrow night and affecting everybody across the eastern U.S. with rain, some snow. We're going to talk about who could see what, even some severe weather. And then at the end of the video, or the second half of the video, we're going to talk about a pattern change that I am starting to see. I'm starting to get a little more confident. I'm not like 100% confident, but I'm getting more confident that we are going to have an opportunity for you winter weather fans, that does include me, to see a pattern change right at the tail end of the month, which for a lot of people, mid to late January is the coldest time of the year. So it might be working out the right time of the year, but we're going to try to figure that out. It's not going to be super detailed, but we are going to show you how ensemble guidance, which is a great thing to look at in the long range, is in pretty good agreement. Probably some of the best agreement that I've seen since I can't really even think back to a time. If you look back to the late December Arctic air mass that blasted through, the ensembles did a great job at picking up on it. Really at 15 days out, they did a great job. So we're kind of seeing some things too, but I'm not seeing a massive like Arctic outbreak or anything, but a potential for a pattern change. We'll call it that. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It goes a long way, and I really appreciate the ongoing support. And if you folks got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rocking tonight and try to figure this out. So let's take a look at the Euro. We're going to take an even look at the NAM and how I think areas pretty far south, I'm not talking about like the Gulf Coast or anything like that, but areas in the mid-south could certainly see some snow flying around in portions of or during the day Friday, and then the early part of this weekend. So we're going to try to figure that out for you folks. So here we go. The system is cranking up tomorrow night. We're getting into Thursday morning at this point. I thought I saw a cat at my feet, but I did not. I don't think there's any cats in the room currently, so like there was this morning. But low pressure riding over the southern areas of Illinois, and the colder side of the storm, it's not very cold, but it's cold enough with cold air following behind this low pressure for some of this rain to turn to snow for northern sections of Missouri, and I definitely do think that will be the case. We keep this going. We're getting into midday Thursday at this point, so we're inside 48 hours now, and we're the meat of this storm riding right over the Ohio Valley. All rain from basically Ohio to Illinois. But as we keep this low pressure rolling through, we got a little bit of higher elevation, higher hills snow, and winter weather frozen precipitation, maybe in the interior areas of the New England area and Northeast. Low pressure riding right over Ohio potentially. Of course, give or take maybe 50, 100 miles either way. We don't know exactly where this low pressure is going to go over, but this is going to be the general area that it crosses. And as this is going through here, there's enough marginal cold air, but marginal in January is certainly cold enough, especially for areas of the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes region, that some of this backside moisture could switch to some heavy wet snow, potentially, even as far south as Indiana, Illinois. And as we're getting into Thursday evening, I do think there will be the potential for a heavy burst of snow as this low pressure pulls away for areas of Michigan, maybe even areas of northern Ohio and Indiana. And as you can tell here, we're getting into the middle of the night, Thursday night into Friday morning. Rain is changing to snow right behind this low pressure. So I really think it's possible that, maybe 70% of the storm in Cleveland is all rain, maybe more. But I think at the tail end of the storm, you could switch to maybe some light to moderate, maybe even a heavy burst of snow in Cleveland, for example. Detroit, same way in the middle of the night, Thursday night into Friday, you guys could certainly see some snow flying around. You might go to sleep and it's just wet ground. You might wake up with a coating of snow on the ground for Friday morning. So it's certainly possible. And then as this low pressure is plowing right through the Northeast, we've been talking about this for days. It's going to be all rain for the Northeast. But it's going to be cold enough with cold air kind of just in the areas that should be cold this time of the year, which is Maine, heavy wet snow, even some icing potential for the higher elevations of Vermont and northern New Hampshire and far northern areas of New York State is certainly possible to likely at this point. And this low pressure then just plows right over the northern sections of New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire. Heavy wet snow in southeast Canada. But look at this back end moisture, and I'll back it up a frame or two. This is for Friday morning. I think you'll have snow showers flying around as far west as Illinois, as far east as Pittsburgh, as far south as the Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee. I think it's likely. In fact, the Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee, which is always a favorite area in Tennessee outside the main mountains of the Southern Appalachian Mountains, a lot of ensemble support show as much as a half inch to maybe even an inch of snow from this. This is kind of a setup that favors people like that and just higher elevations where the moisture just kind of gets amplified, if you will. But, getting into midday Friday, you got snow flying around for central and especially eastern Kentucky, all of West Virginia just about. The snow is really picking up in the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina, and pretty much all the mountains of central and southern, the central and southern Appalachian Mountains. It's snowing pretty good. And I think there could be some lake enhancement off Erie. So, Erie, Pennsylvania, maybe even Cleveland, especially Cleveland points east, could certainly see some enhancement from the Great Lakes like Lake Erie. And you keep this going, and we're getting all the way to Friday evening at this point, and it's still snowing like crazy. I think the Smoky Mountains, Mount LeConte could certainly potentially get close to 8 to 12 inches of snow. I think it's possible. It's at 6,000 feet up in the air. And then if you're just happening to be vacationing in Gatlinburg, it could be a snowy trip for you guys. A few inches of snow is certainly possible in Gatlinburg. I think Boone can see some snow. Rome Mountain area will certainly see a lot of snow. And I think even the valleys of Tennessee between the plateau and the mountains, we'll see at least some snow just flying around. I think West Virginia, ski country will pick up a little natural snow. Several inches are certainly possible. And to keep this rolling, and that secondary low that we were kind of talking about, it does not look existent anymore. It does not look like it's going to be a scenario. We were calling it a wild card scenario over the last couple of days. I don't think it's going to be the case anymore. His sense trended away, and it's just not going to happen. One thing I want to show you guys is the NAM. We're in range of the 12 km NAM. It's not always accurate, but sometimes it can pick up on mesoscale things that the global models can't. One thing I want you to notice really quick here, and this could trend away as we're getting into tomorrow evening, an area of precipitation ahead of the main low pressure right here into the overnight hours of Wednesday night into Thursday morning, shows a little bit of snow in southern sections of New York State, Pennsylvania, like the Scranton area, a little bit of snow moving into southern New England before a lot of warm air gets brought in by this low pressure at the surface and aloft. And, the NAM wants to throw a little bit of snow for areas of southern New England, and maybe areas in Long Island, southern sections of Connecticut and Rhode Island. It could certainly be just a cold rain, but we watched this little area of precipitation ahead of the main low pressure tomorrow night into Thursday morning, and then here comes the low pressure just plowing right over the Ohio Valley. You certainly need a low pressure going this way if you want a winter storm across the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, even Southeast. But we'll stop it here. This is around Thursday afternoon. Some backside moisture. I really think this will be mixing with some snow in Indiana and Illinois. I definitely think it will. Low pressure scooting right over Ohio. But really what I want you to see here is watch how this heavy precipitation changes to snow in northwest areas of Ohio. It's going to be kind of a wild card. I think somebody could get an isolated 4 to 5, maybe even, I would say about 3 to 5 inches in this area. Some heavy wet snow could form right on the backside of this low pressure sometime Thursday afternoon and evening. But watch as we're getting into the overnight hours of Thursday into Friday morning. For example, this is around 4 o'clock in the morning Friday. You got a lot of energy flying around in the Ohio Valley, a lot of snow showers all the way from Illinois, like I said, all the way to Pittsburgh, all the way up to Erie, maybe all the way to Buffalo, some heavier snow falling. But look at these snow showers showing up as far south as Tennessee. I think some snow showers could potentially kind of flirt with the Huntsville, Alabama area. We'll definitely watch it. What people don't know is the plateau extends almost all the way into the northern sections of Birmingham. I don't know if you folks have ever been to Birmingham, but a really side story that'll take 30 seconds. When I was storm chasing, I'd never been through Birmingham. I went through there spring of 2021 when I was storm chasing out in Alabama, and I had no idea Birmingham was so hilly. You wouldn't think a city like Birmingham would, it almost is like mini mountains that extend all the way southwest of the city. It blew my mind. I was like driving down the interstate. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm pretty good with geography and where mountains are and things like that, but that definitely it shocked me for just for you folks who don't know. It's an interesting tidbit for sure. And there's some higher elevations that extend. Actually, it's basically the southern tip of the Appalachian Mountains that extend into Alabama. So interesting fact there if you guys didn't know. But Friday morning, I think it's going to be a snowy start to your weekend. A snowy Friday morning. Snow will be flying around Ohio, I think, West Virginia, and then the Northwest Flow areas will certainly be getting Northwest Flow snow. I certainly think it's likely. Well, it's going to happen. It's pretty much forecasted to happen. And like I said, I mean, we're getting into midday Friday. You got snow flying around. Not a ton, just sporadic snow showers, flurries. As far south as Nashville. Could sneak into the Chattanooga area, certainly the Knoxville, and definitely areas in Gatlinburg. Certainly we'll be having some snow flying around. If you're heading up to the mountains, say Friday, for example, just for the weekend, you're probably going to be driving in some snow. I would, recommend maybe leaving a day early if you can. But anyways, we're getting into Friday evening. I think the snow picks up. Potentially, maybe even into the plateaus of Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, all of Ohio. I definitely think if there's going to be a chance for you guys in this region right here to pick up a couple inches of snow, it'll be Friday p.m. sometime. And then you keep this going, and I think, and this is as far out as the NAM goes, but it certainly shows some moderate to heavy snows, basically in the southern to central Appalachian Mountains here. Flying around. In fact, I would say that we call it in the weather world getting NAMmed because the model, short range model, is called the NAM, and sometimes the NAM can do some funky runs right before it really consolidates and figures out the storm to a T, and sometimes it just throws out some wild scenarios. But certainly something we need to watch out for. We'll talk about a couple areas about how much snow they can see. We'll run through this very quickly. Missouri, St. Louis, Illinois area. Dusting of snow is possible, maybe as much as an inch in areas of northern Missouri. This is going to be a weird system. What I mean is I really think some areas in the Ohio Valley could pick up maybe a burst of snow that busts your snowfall prediction totals a little bit high. I think it's possible. For example, it's very sporadic in Illinois and southern Wisconsin. You just got basically sporadic areas showing maybe a dusting of snow. But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody somehow sneaky light picks up maybe an inch of snow somewhere in Illinois. It's going to be a difficult one to figure out. Indiana, I would say 80% of the state forecasting just a dusting to maybe a coating of snow, maybe as much as a half inch of snow. You go down here to the southern Appalachian Mountains in Kentucky and the plateau of Tennessee, certain areas might kind of pick up that sneaky inch of snow. It's possible. But certainly the actual mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, especially on the Tennessee side, the Smokies are right here. I think somebody in the Smokies could certainly pick up over a half a foot of snow. I definitely think it's likely. And then the mountains of West Virginia will be heavily favored. If you're going up to ski this weekend in West Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, especially West Virginia, I definitely think it'll be a good weekend to do it. There'll actually be snow flying around. It'll feel kind of wintry. And just this January just has not been very winter-like. It really hasn't at all. But even in eastern Kentucky, guys, I think even outside the main mountains, just the hills, could pick up 1 to 2 inches of snow. Even though you're not seeing it here, I think somebody could pick up some. It's definitely possible. You go up here to Michigan, and if you folks know in the Ohio area, I'm about to show you guys here in a second, but listen, if you're in Michigan, if you're in this area of southeast Michigan right into here, not necessarily into Detroit, but this area right in here, somebody could get more snow than forecasted. They really could. I think somebody could possibly try to get maybe 4 to 5 inches of snow. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but watch this area right here as this low pressure kind of scoots by, an amplification kind of moisture right here with enough cold air. Watch for somebody to pick up a sneaky 4 to 5 inches of snow in this region right here and southern to southeast areas of Michigan. I think it's definitely possible. Ohio, certain areas will kind of be between the actual mountains of West Virginia and the lake enhancement. Like I said, Cleveland right into here forecast to get maybe 2 to 3 inches of snow. And I certainly think there could be some enhancement off Lake Erie right here, but I think there's a chance that everybody in Ohio could see a little bit of snow at least flying around, but certain areas will certainly pick up 1 to 2 inches of snow. If you're up against the southern shores of Lake Erie up here in northeast Ohio and northern Ohio, I definitely think you could pick up some appreciable snow totals, like 2 to 3 inches of snow. I definitely think Pittsburgh, you're forecast to potentially maybe get a half inch to an inch of snow. And I definitely think that's possible. I think there'll be some heavy snow shower activities, especially Friday afternoon, evening for that region. And then we look at the Northeast, and I think northern Maine is going to get a lot of snow, like you should be this time of the year. And I think the northern sections of Vermont, New Hampshire, and maybe far northern areas of New York State could certainly pick up a few inches of snow, even some icing that I don't even have up here. I'll show you some icing. Definitely a glaze of ice possible, really anywhere. But I think if you're in areas of Buffalo, a couple inches of snow is possible. And then watch out in even central and eastern areas of Pennsylvania. Maybe an isolated dusting is possible for sure. Severe weather threat is there. There's a slight risk of severe storms for Alabama and Georgia and areas of southern sections of Tennessee. There is a marginal risk also, but the slight risk is a level 2 out of 5. This is really driven off a damaging wind threat, guys. The tornado threat, I think, will be low. I think they'll end up issuing a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location when I give you an update on this tomorrow. But we'll see. But I think the damaging wind threat will be the biggest threat with this. But even with that threat, I don't think it's going to be a huge threat by any means. But we'll take a look at the latest HRRR model. It only goes out 48 hours. So it's only going to take us out to about lunchtime Thursday. But it shows the idea of that line forming. Here it goes, cutting right through Mississippi. You got some storms that'll probably be moving through Huntsville, Alabama, for example, about late morning to about midday. And then we'll go all the way 48 hours out. Looks like this line of storms is beginning to intensify. Look at the blue sneaking into the map in southern Missouri. I definitely think there's areas that could see some storms Thursday and then turn around and see snow showers Friday. So don't be surprised. It seems like that's just really not even uncommon these days. It definitely happens in Tennessee a lot more often. If there's any state in the Southeast that it happens the most, it's certainly Tennessee. But you go 48 hours out, takes us to about lunchtime, and it shows a line of storms beginning to intensify, moving through eastern Tennessee, even areas of eastern Kentucky, and we'll be knocking on the doorstep of Atlanta sometime in the afternoon, evening hours, and then knocking on the doorstep of Birmingham just before lunchtime. So we'll watch this. Damaging winds is the main threat with this. We'll certainly pay attention to it. So let's flip gears and talk about this potential pattern change. So I know right off the bat you're thinking, what pattern change? What am I looking at, Mitch? This is the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. I'm showing you this right off the press here. They kind of show you what I'm about to explain. So above average temperatures compared to average predicted the 18th through the 24th time frame. What we watch for in this 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, as this was issued this afternoon, January 10th. What is the January 11th going to look like? Does this blue area begin to inch a little bit east? I think it does. I think it begins to tick further and further east as we get into as we work ourselves into a range where this is the last week of January. So I think a week from today, or maybe even 4 to 5 days from today, I think that the outlook, say for January 15th or 16th, I think we'll be back to around average temperatures for the eastern U.S. Just a feeling here. So right now, if you're a winter weather fan, it's good that you're seeing below average temperatures out here, because that tells us what I'm about to show you on the ensembles, that eventually troughing sets up out west first. That means cooler than average temperatures or near normal out west. And eventually that pattern will work its way east right in time for late January, which for you folks that live in the eastern U.S., especially for you folks in the southeast, you guys know that late January has produced some big winter storms in the southeast. So even as of late. But let's talk about this. This is the European ensemble. This is our storm signal. So the blues you see as low pressures or troughing or cutoff lows or upper level lows in general, upper troughs. The reds and just the warmer colors you see on here is ridging. So in general, that normally means warmer than average temperatures and likely not any kind of stormy pattern. So the blues typically below average temperatures or a storm in the area, things like that. So basically the blues doesn't always mean below average temperatures, but it means that there is a chance for troughing or some kind of low pressure or just a dip in the jet stream, lower heights, which means a dip in the jet stream in general. There's ways that you can explain it better, but just think of that as if you see blue on the map, there starts to become a favorable set up for below, at least back to average to below average temperatures, or maybe some kind of storm signal, low pressure in general. So we get this system on out the way that we just talked about for about 15 minutes. I did not want to talk about that long, but you know how it goes with these videos, guys. I just get to rambling. And then here goes the troughing. See the blue anomalies, the lower heights. This is when you get probably an active storm track, and I think sometime early next week, midway next week, the storm track is going to set up right over the middle of the country. So you're going to have troughing the west, storms are going to move through, and then they're going to shoot across the middle of the country. I think there could be another severe weather threat sometime next week. And I think big time ridging is going to set up right over the eastern U.S., and I think it's going to be very warm in the eastern U.S. next week. I really do. I think it's going to be widespread 70s for the south. And I think some areas could potentially hit 80 depending on where you live. But anyways, we won't focus too much on that. But what we're seeing on the horizon way out is as we work our way into about the day 8, day 9 range, you see a trough signal beginning to set up here. See the bluer areas right into here? This sets up over the middle of the country, and then we start to get to around day 11, day 12, and then you have a signal for what we call a positive PNA, which is ridging in the west and troughing in the east. So you need these heights right here to be tall. You need these isobars you see right here to stretch way up here. The taller they are, the more chances you get a cold air dump down here. So even though you're seeing all this blue right here over the central and eastern U.S., that doesn't necessarily mean you got well below average temperatures. It means that there's a chance for some kind of troughing meaning cold front, some kind of storm signal, a dip in the jet stream, where we begin to get a favorable storm track that starts to dip further south, a more suppressed look as of what we're about to see in a couple days with storm track shoots right over the Ohio Valley. So we get this rolling here, and the signal continues. Past day 10, we're getting closer to day 14. Day 15, and you still have a signal. And right at the end of it, around the 24th to 25th range, even though this is 348 hours out, you start to get a connection to the Arctic. So you get a stout look that shows troughing in the east, ridging in the west. And when you start to get that look in late January, guys, you don't need to have well below average temperatures in late January, guys, even for the southeast, for example, or the south in general. You can have like 2, 3, 4 degrees below average for that time of the year in late January, and that could be enough for winter weather. It certainly is cold enough for winter weather for areas further north. So the European ensemble, which is arguably the most reliable long-range thing to look at as far as long-range forecasting out there in the world, you look at the same thing for the GFS ensemble, and let's see if we can get some updated information here. Same kind of deal. We're already a little bit further in time. We're starting this a week out from today. And we already have troughing setting up over the west, that negative PNA, which when you have a negative PNA, you have troughing in the west, ridging in the east, which means, like I said, next week we are going to what we call torch in the weather world, which means we are going to be way above average for a lot of the eastern and southern U.S. But I think it's a fleeting pattern. As soon as we start to get to the end of next week, I think that signal, look, it's the same looking thing that you're seeing on the European. 258 hours out. Let's go 258 hours out on the European ensemble. And same look, 258 hours out. Look at that troughing signal setting up over the middle of the country. Same deal, incredible agreement. All right, and then look what it does. It but it looks even better. And then you keep this look going past day 10, 11, 12, and it continues to have that strong look, guys. It really does. And you almost start to begin to have a cross-polar flow out of Canada that dips down into the middle and eastern part of the country. And this is a cold look for a lot of people. It really is. So same thing with the Canadian ensemble, which, isn't looked at as much, but it's still an ensemble run, and it shows the same signal. 258 hours out, a signal for troughing setting up in a ridging scenario building into the western U.S. And look at that signal right there. That is a pretty significant, consistent looking pattern change showing up on these long range ensemble runs. It really is, guys. incredible agreement. It really is. So I think I think what I'm trying to say is, well, what I am trying to say is, I think that we have and will have an opportunity the last, I would say, 7 days of January, the last week of January. I think there will be an opportunity for the eastern U.S. to see some kind of slightly below average temperatures, and then maybe a storm signal show up. So same thing with the European ensemble. You look at that, all that troughing I just showed you, and we go all the way to 252 hours out. Let's go all the way out to 300 hours out. And here it is. We match what this shows compared to the European ensemble 300 hours out. And you got troughing setting up. So you get below average temperatures showing up in the south on January 23rd, guys. I mean, so third, fourth week of January. It seems like the first 10 days of January to me, guys, have just went by incredibly slow. But I do think something is going to set up sometime in the last 7 days of January. That's just my gut feeling. That's what I'm thinking, guys. I mean, below average temperatures showing up in this area. I know this isn't like a massive signal of like 15 to 20 degrees below average for this time of the year, but you don't want to see that if you want winter weather, because to me that would symbolize a huge Arctic air mass, and a lot of times that would suppress your storm signal way down into the Gulf of Mexico, well off the coast of the eastern U.S., kind of like what we saw with our opportunity in late December a few weeks back. So we'll continue to watch this. Another thing, if you're wondering why we keep getting blasted with all this mild air, it's because of this Pacific jet that you see right here. And what's going on is the Pacific jet is basically flooding the lower 48 with mild Pacific air. And here it is. This is the Pacific jet with this vibrant colors. This is blasting into California and the western coast, and it continues to do so. But look, as we get about a week out, begins to buckle as these troughing sets up in the west, the negative PNA, which is ridging in the east, troughing in the west, colder than average temperatures in the west, warmer than average temperatures in the east. So the storm track dips in response to the troughing over the west. And this is 200 millibar wind streams right here. So basically, this is where the jet stream is, where basically the storm track, the track of where our storms take is like this, bang, bang, bang through here. But as we keep going here, and that troughing sets up over the east, the storm track begins to set up pretty far south with just enough cold air by. And especially as we get to like the day 12, day 13 range. Look at this storm track right off the eastern U.S., just enough cold air nearby. And to me, this doesn't scream a winter storm, but it shows a signal, I think, unless this goes away, which it potentially can, for some mischief right at the end of the month. That's what I'm thinking, guys. I really am. I'm going to take a shot here. You know, part of what I do here on YouTube is to give my own opinions too. But if there's a period to watch coming up, I think it's the last 10 days, 8 to 10 days of January. I do think it is. We'll continue to figure this out. We'll try to work this into the medium range. But this has been showing up the last 2 or 3 days. Pretty incredible agreement by all ensemble runs. So we'll continue to figure it out for you guys. God bless all y'all. Hope the video helped you guys out. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll talk to you guys in the morning.